This is the Guns Magazine podcast, episode number 87. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent T. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting people who make up the world of shooting, hunting, and the firearms industry. First, before we get started, let's talk about our great sponsors. 1791 Gunleather is the presenting sponsor of the Guns Magazine podcast, and they'd like you to know their appreciation for the Second Amendment fuels their passion for gun leather and its representation of the original patriots of this great nation. 100% Certified American Steerhide joins 4 generations of professional leather artisans to create the perfect firearms holster. Carry your firearm with pride, knowing that each 1791 Gunleather holster is handcrafted to be the best holster for your firearm. See their full product lineup at 1791gunleather.com. The supporting sponsor of the Guns Magazine podcast is Hodgdon Powder. Available in granular powder and pellets, Hodgdon's family of 777 powders gives muzzleloading enthusiasts a quick cleaning, low-odor black powder substitute for rifle and pistol applications. To learn more, visit Hodgdon.com. Well, today we've got a fun chat with our own Shari LeGate. In addition to being our video producer extraordinaire, Shari is also the color commentator for NBC's coverage of Olympic shooting sports. With the Tokyo Olympics right around the corner, we thought it might be interesting to get a behind-the-scenes look at coverage of the world's largest shooting sports stage. Now here's my chat with Shari LeGate. Good morning, Shari.
Good morning, Fred.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's a lovely 73 degrees here in Arizona and clear blue skies, so I'm having a good day. We're done with the fires and we're all good.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking at my desk thermometer and it's 73 here, but I've got 93% humidity. I bet you're not that high.
Ouch. No, our percentage in humidity is like down to nothing.
Yeah, a small fish just flew by my window.
Why do you live in that kind of humidity?
It's it is what it is. It's beautiful when it's not this ugly. So
I get it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking to us. We are going to talk about your upcoming adventure, I guess you would call it. You are the color announcer, I believe it is, for NBC, National Broadcasting Corporation, and the Olympic and the shooting part of the Olympics. Is that correct?
Yes, I am your shooting sports analyst for all of the shooting sports for the Olympic Games for NBC. This is my 4th Olympics that I will be doing this, and it's exciting. You know, it happens only once every 4 years, so it's very, very exciting. It's a lot of work, but it's fun.
And you are also a competitor, so that's why they've got you in the booth, so you can actually explain what it's like to be down there.
Yes. And that's the whole point. That's what makes a good color commentator, is that you have been there. So you know what's going on in the minds of these athletes. You know what's happening. And you can explain that to the person who's never been there, or maybe just someone who's not familiar with the sport and watching it. So you can relate to them and they can relate to the sport and to the athlete.
Well, that's perfect timing, because the next question is, what all do they do at the Olympics? Some of the stuff seems a little arcane. Some of it's pretty straightforward.
They do shotgun, but they do shotgun, rifle, and pistol. So they do 3 disciplines, but within each discipline is more sports. So for instance, in shotgun, they have trap and skeet, men's trap, men's skeet, women's trap, women's skeet, and then they have a team event. So essentially, they have 5 events in shotgun. And then in rifle, you have small bore, you have prone, you have 3 position. You have all these little disciplines that go within each sport. And the same thing in pistol. So all in all, at the Olympic Games, there's like 15 to 17 shooting sports that take place.
So what is it exactly? I mean, we all know what a color analyst is, but I mean, when you're talking to the producers and the folks working with you, what is it? What is your job? What do they tell you to do? What do you want to hit?
I make the play-by-play guy look good. That's what I do. We always, how do we put it? He's the fluff, I'm the stuff.
Oh, wow.
That's how we put it. Okay. Because his job, and don't get me wrong, play-by-play is a hard job.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you have to explain to the viewer what is going on down at the field. Example in baseball, who is up, what the throw is, what the stats are on this guy, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of prep work for a play-by-play guy. My job is to explain what's going on through that player's head, what's with his swing, why they're throwing that kind of ball, what's the strategy behind what's happening right now. That's what a color commentator does. So I guess it's kind of both. I guess we're both fluff and stuff.
Well,
and if you call me that at any other time,
okay.
You better start watching your back.
Okay. Well, it's funny. I actually, in college, did some play-by-play for go-kart racing. And it is tough because, and they're going in the first turn, and they're leaving the first turn. And they're going to the second turn. And look at that. They're leaving the second turn, so it does get challenging when nothing interesting is happening. So how do you work out the relationship? I mean, is it the kind of thing that you just jump in when you feel it's necessary, or does the producer say, okay, Shari, tell us something interesting here?
If you have a good relationship with your play-by-play guy, and I've always had that, you have to really work well with your play-by-play guy, and he's going to set you up. And you usually talk about that prior, and he'll, as we say, toss you softballs,
right,
so that you can jump in and say something that is intelligent. But it's more about giving insight and keeping it entertaining, especially in the shooting sports. Shooting sports, think about golf. I mean, some people look at golf and they go, oh my gosh, how can you sit there and watch this? Okay. I personally find golf to be very, very entertaining, but listen to the color commentators there on what they do. And they talk about, okay, he's got this kind of club and this is what he needs to do. And then they analyze his swing. And that's what I do. I analyze let's say a guy misses a target, God forbid, but it happens. Why did he miss that target? Okay. Where the play-by-play guy is going to go, and he missed it.
Yeah.
So then you have to go, yeah, he did.
So do you have a golf voice like, well, he's approaching and putting his magazine in the pistol?
No, I don't do that. But I will tell you, and it was kind of crazy. And I'm sure you know who Rowdy Gaines is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he's well known for getting super, super excited and screaming and yelling. I mean, because that's what makes him a good color commentator. He gets that excitement going and he draws the viewer into the sport. And when Jamie Korish won the gold medal at the Olympics, she was in the last shooter, and she needed to shoot a 10.9 or better in order to win. Okay, it was that close. Now, people are going to say rifle, especially small bore. I mean, it's like watching paint dry. All of a sudden you go, oh, their finger moved. Okay, so you got somehow
look at the
there's
finger
the shot,
move. And
everybody's like, where's the shot? Where is it? Right. So down in the lower part of the screen, we have a target, and then you can see it. And in this particular instance, though, and that was my job, was to make that sport exciting. And I actually love that sport, so I did get excited. But when she shot that 10.9, I was in the booth, and I literally jumped up and just threw my hands over my head, and I'm like screaming, 10.9, she wins the gold, she won the gold. And I was out of control because I was so excited for Jamie. But and as a color commentator, though, you're not, especially for USA, we are told you're not supposed to really root for your home team.
Well, where's the fun in that? I love broadcasters that are homers.
I know. But let's face it. I mean, I'm a baseball fan, and there's a couple of broadcasters, and they're rooting against your team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Oh, come on. I know. So we try and keep it neutral because it is the Olympics and it is a world stage.
Yeah.
And it's about the sport.
We'll talk about pitching softballs. So, Shari, you want to let us know what your favorite sport is?
In shooting or in everything?
I didn't phrase. I was trying to get the voice and didn't get the question out.
That's okay. Of course it's shotgun because I'm a shotgun shooter.
I figured.
Yeah, it really is. In shotgun, it's much more visual, but and it's an explosive sport. It's very visual. You can see the result very quickly.
Yeah, you know when the shot goes. No question.
Yeah, the target explodes and it's fun to watch. But having said that, rifle and pistol, I mean, these guys learn how to control their heartbeats. They learn how to shoot in between their heartbeats. They learn how to stay calm. I mean, they're incredible, incredible athletes. And it's more about mental focus for them. They are incredible to watch and to talk to. But you put a shotgun shooter right next to a rifle or pistol shooter. And when I was on the U.S. team, the rifle and pistol coaches wouldn't let their athletes hang out with us shotgun shooters because shotgun shooters have explosive personalities because that's what the game is. I mean, you're out there, right? You're just throwing it and you are exploding and you're moving quickly.
No comment.
Really. So anyway, they would, because shotgun shooters, we were partiers. I mean, we were going for it. We'd had a great time. And they're like, you guys stay away from the shotgun shooters.
Wow. So, that's funny.
Yeah, well, I know.
The logical follow-on question then is, a broadcaster, how much interaction do you have with the athletes?
A lot when you're on site. Unfortunately, this year, because of COVID, and you're not on site at the Olympics, but where you are on site is like at Olympic trials, at World Cups, at local events where you get to know them. Yeah. And I know a lot of these athletes. For instance, I mean, one of my jobs is to predict who do I think is going to win or who's a forefront player in the game. And for instance, in skeet, it's Vinny Hancock, who, did back-to-back gold medals. He's probably I would say he is the best skeet shooter in the world, shotgun shooter. Kid's incredible. He's in his 30s right now, and I have been covering him since he first burst onto the sport when he was 13. So I know him, I know his family, I know how he works, I know how he thinks, I know how he trains. And here's a really funny story about Vinny very quickly. I was thinking about this last night. Years and years and years ago, I was still competing, and I was actually on the downside of my career, leaving the sport, just, on the tail end, getting ready to retire. And Vinny was just coming into it, and he was 13. And we were shooting together on the same squad. And we were sitting down on the bench waiting to go up on the field. And he was shooting okay. I mean, he's 13 years old. Out of 100, he would be shooting in the high 80s, low 90s, which at 13 was pretty good. And he just was right there. But anyway, he sat down next to me and he was all depressed. And I'm like, Vin, what's going on, man? And he's like, I should have started this sport earlier. And I looked at him and I said, how old are you? And he said, 13. And I said, when would you have wanted to start? And he said, well, at least when I was 10, maybe even earlier. And I will never forget that, because that's how much passion and commitment he has to the sport, which is what makes him a champion. Yeah.
So how is it you got hooked up with NBC as a commentator?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'll make that a really short story. I was the color analyst and color commentator for ESPN for the Great Outdoor Games. And they had rifle, pistol, and archery. And I did that for 6 years. Prior to that, I had my own show on, back then it was like Outdoor Network or Versus TNN. It's gone through so many names. Well, then my play-by-play guy for the Great Outdoor Games was Bill Clement, who, if you're a hockey fan, you will know that he was captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, Stanley Cup winner. Great guy. Well, he and I hit it off. The first day we met, we were at the Great Outdoor Games, and he took me to dinner at Morton's, by the way. And he said, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know anything about shooting.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and said, well, that's good, because I know nothing about hockey. And so he said, well, you teach me about shooting and I'll teach you about hockey. And I said, deal. Well, we wound up working together for like 6 years. And then he worked for NBC as a freelancer and doing hockey as their color commentator for hockey for the Winter Olympics. This is a long time ago. So then I asked him one day, I said, how come they don't do shooting at the Olympics? Why don't they show shooting at the Olympics? And he said, why doesn't NBC show it? And he said, that's a really good question. I'll ask. And he did. And then he called and he said, hey, guess what? We're going to do some shooting. Are you interested? And I went, oh, yeah. And that's how it started.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I know you take in a lot of meetings. We've talked about it in our jobs working for FMG Publications, the proud owners of Guns Magazine and American Handgunner Magazine and AmericanCop.com.
American Cop, yeah.
And Sherry's our video producer. But so we work together literally every day. But I know you've been doing a lot of meetings. Talk about how you get prepared to do this, because television, big time television, has a whole lot of moving parts. I mean, what we do has a lot of moving parts, and then it's times 1,000 when you're talking NBC.
Yeah, it is. It's night and day difference. We have pre-production meetings. We start preparing. We've been preparing now for probably, I started preparing about a month and a half ago. You
mean like we do for this podcast, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. No.
Yeah. Sorry, just had to laugh about that.
You call me up and say, hey, good morning, you ready? Yeah, no, that's not what we do. We actually have had, and because of COVID and everything, the way things have changed, I've probably been in 2 Zoom meetings a week. And we talk, there is a tremendous amount of moving parts. It's incredible. I think right now NBC, and I wrote this down, they have like 3,200 or something like that employees that are working the Olympics all across.
Wow.
Now, don't quote me on that number, because I wrote it down and I just can't seem to find it right now. But there's just a ton of people and on-air talent, production, producers, everybody. And that includes people like wardrobe and catering, drivers to get you to and from. And so they have to coordinate all of that. And so those of us that are considered talent, we sit in production meetings with executive producers and our producer about, okay, how we're going to do this, what we're going to say, how we're going to, what we call laying in, laying out, certain phrases that we want to say, how are we going to refer to things? It's much more, I hate to say this, Brent, but it's much more professional.
Really? Seriously?
I'm sorry. I just had this. And I know we're professional. Don't get me wrong, people. Listeners, we are professionals. Okay. But yeah.
I'm going to have to edit that part out before the boss hears it. No, in your defense, I often tell people the cool part about working for our company is most of us, almost all of us, get along really, really well. We're friends first and coworkers second. And it reminds me a lot of like a high school class that, hey, let's put together a play and you make the curtains and I'll write the script. And that's kind of how we do stuff around here. And it's fun. It's not, we are never overproduced. I will guarantee you that.
Oh gosh, no. Who is it? What was that? Those old time movies with Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney?
Yes,
hey,
exactly.
Let's put on a play and we'll build a barn.
Exactly. That's us.
That's and that is us. That's what we do. I mean, it's been like with cranks and gun cranks and some of the other things that we do. It's kind of, hey, let's do this. Oh, okay. Well, you do this and I'll do that. And we do this. Actually, there is a phrase for what we do, and it's called guerrilla television or guerrilla broadcasting, because we really do it down and dirty.
Yeah.
We don't overproduce anything because we don't have the resources at all.
We don't have 3,200 people. I was going to say, I am still so angry that I don't have catering. You know, we go to these photo shoots or the video shoots, and we come out of the portalette, me and Tom, and there's no catering.
Oh boy, I tell you, you know what? I love it. Okay, so everybody who's listening, just so you know, Brent is always looking at me going, I'm parched. Could I have some Evian, please?
I want some free-range, low-fat Evian water.
Yes. So then I pick up a garden hose and spray him.
Okay, we've completely gone off the rails, which is what always happens here. But
I know. But
so
don't call me on that figure. I'm trying to find that. I wrote this down and I can't find it, but I know it's a tremendous amount of people, thousands that are putting this program on, more than ever before because of COVID. Because there's so many things that have had to be adapted and changed in order to bring the Olympics.
Yeah. So once you land, do you have like a handler that, makes sure you get to where you need to be, or you kind of on your own until time?
No, I will be met at the airport. There'll be a car there. It'll take me to my hotel.
A little sign, Miss LeGate.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And by then my producer will have called me and say, okay, where do you, we're going to meet up at such and such a time. I got it just the other day, the big research manual that I'm going to be studying and perusing that lists every athlete in all around the world that will be competing at the Olympic Games in the shooting sports.
Wow.
So I will be sitting there looking at that. And then my job is to go through and say, okay, I know, pretty sure these 20 people are going to make the final, because those are really the only ones I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many, and you kind of know who's going to, based on World Cup performances, World Championships, just the past year, on who's at the top of their game. But there's always a dark horse, which is kind of fun, And what's really good is they do give us the phonetic spellings because some of those names, there are no vowels in the Russian vocabulary. I know that for a fact. And I will look at like some of the Chinese competitors or some of the Asian competitors and their names, and I'm like, okay, let's try that.
Look at him. He's doing great.
Well, so I remember one time me and the play-by-play guy, we were sitting there going, how do you say this name? And then we looked at each other and said, let's just call him by his first name. Okay, cool. Let's do that. So, yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a lot of prep work. And that's just where, in my case, for the sport, there's not so much prep work as there is getting to know the athletes. For the play-by-play guy, who doesn't know the sport, he's got to learn the sport as well.
Yeah. Plus
learn about the athletes. So he has a lot more to start prepping for, so that he doesn't sound like he doesn't know the sport.
Yeah.
And I have a new play-by-play guy this year. I don't know him.
Oh no.
I know. He emailed me a couple days ago, and so he and I are going to chat and just get to know each other. He seems like a good guy. I've looked at some of his work, and he's good. He's a professional. I'm not worried. His name's Jack Benjamin, and I think he'll be good.
He's
doing his prep work already, so I'm excited about that. Well,
I've got to ask this question, and you may have to pull your punch a little bit, but NBC is not known as the most 2A friendly network. Have you caught any little comments or anything that gave you the feeling they don't, as a corporation or maybe just individuals, they're not really behind the shooting sports?
I get this question a lot, and I just did a column on this, and I will be fielding questions throughout the Olympics with people saying, why aren't they showing more shooting? NBC's anti-gun. I have been doing this, like I said, this is my fourth Olympics. And the first Olympics that I did with them, I met up with everybody at 30 Rock in New York. And everybody was saying, all my shooter buddies and shooter media was saying, oh my God, you're walking into the den of the lion.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that's what I was doing. And I was apprehensive and nervous, but I will tell you, in my entire time working with NBC, they have been nothing but courteous, polite, and never anti anything. At least not the people that I've worked with. In fact, the producers, the executive producers, have shown interest in the sport itself. And the fact that they are willing, they show a lot of this Now, keep in mind, if an American doesn't make the final, the chances of us, of shooting getting broadcast are pretty slim.
Right.
Because no one really cares if the one of the some obscure country is winning. No one really cares.
The Ugandan shooter is cleaning the board.
Yeah, no one. Let's face it, Americans aren't going to care. And bottom line is, NBC is a business, and it does have to worry about ratings and their advertisers, just like we do. So we're not swimming. We're not track and field. We're not gymnastics. So we're not those big sports. But NBC has always been interested, courteous, and polite when it came to the shooting sports with me. Like I said, executive producers have even told me, hey, I got a gun. What do you think about this gun? And we'll talk about guns.
Very cool.
Never once have I been experienced. Let me say, never once have I experienced any kind of anti-gun rhetoric. Now, it might be happening at the corporate level.
Yeah.
But at my level, down where I'm at, no. And they've never censored anything. They have been more than cooperative.
Very interesting, which that kind of leads into my next question. Okay. I had the question. Okay. Yeah. And if you have to change names to protect the guilty, what's been the worst train wreck you've had on air? That moment where you're like, oh, my Lord, they're not even going to pay to send us home.
I've had two, if you want to know the truth. One was I had a play-by-play guy who kept calling them pistols when he was referring to rifle and shotgun.
Oh.
And I don't like to correct, you just don't correct them on air.
Right.
You just don't. So, you'd write a note and say, and hand it to him going, it's shotgun or it's a rifle. It's not a pistol. Okay. So that, or referring to it as a weapon, because it's not, it's a tool. It is like a golf club or a bat.
Yeah.
It is a tool for these athletes to perform. And sometimes people come back at me and say, well, those don't kill people. I'm like, yeah, if I hit you in the head with a 5-iron,
I was going to say,
you're pretty much going to die.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the user, not the tool.
I covered a murder involving a putter. Serious.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
So anyway,
I got to hear that.
Anyway, back to the fun stuff. A train wreck thing. Yeah. The producer quit. He's walking away, threw his headset down.
The other time it happened was the play-by-play guy didn't show up.
Oh.
And granted, it wasn't his fault. What happened was the night before, and you're always, when you're there, when you're doing the Olympics, whether or not you're scheduled, because you do have a schedule and you're supposed, okay, you're going to air at this time. You need to be in the booth at this time, but something exciting might happen and you need to get there. And so you're always on call. So what happened was something exciting happened in shooting the night before. And they said, okay, be in the booth at such and such a time the next morning, because we're going to go live with this. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I got the notice, the stat guy, I have a great stat guy, by the way. I got to tell you about him later, but he got the notice, and the producer got the notice. Who did not get the notice was the play-by-play guy.
Oh.
I don't know where he was or what had happened. So anyway, we're all sitting in the booth and we're ready to go live. And the producer said, hey, Shari, you're doing play-by-play. And I'm like, what? I don't know how to do play-by-play, I mean, and, because you got to do your locator, you got to say, hey, welcome to, and, I mean, it's harder than people think it is.
You mean all that stuff that I always screw up and you yell at me about? You didn't mention feature A, B, and C and where we were. I know it's hard. It's tough.
It is. So anyway, I got through it. The play-by-play guy, comes. He came running in, going, "God, you guys, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I wanted to throw my arms around him and kiss him and say, "Oh, thank God you're here."
No doubt.
So wow. That's probably about. Yeah, I mean, they weren't utter catastrophes, but at the time, because when you're live, everything is just, so
Yeah.
you just, you gotta stay calm.
That's funny. Well, and you've also told some stories about when you were in less free countries where, you have to take some pretty noteworthy precautions in terms of your own security.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you do. Because you get hacked into, whether it's your personal computer, your phone, whatever. And, we're on a delay. I think when in Beijing, we were on a 6-second delay. So they could hear everything we said before we said it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and one of the things I read in one of our production meetings this year, we were talking, they're going to have mics on the field. Okay. Because with COVID, things have changed dramatically for the way they're producing the Olympic Games. So they're going to have mics on the field. We were talking about, well, athletes don't always say, oh, darn.
I was going to say. I've been around a lot of athletes, and that's not what they say.
No, it's not what they say.
They use big words.
Yeah. So and that's going to be up to the producer and us to go, oops, and either cover it. And it might be, we might have a second or two delay or something, or just stay on top of it so we can see it coming. Wow. And, they can do whatever they need to do. Thankfully, that's not me. That's the production people. Those are the people behind the scenes that, my gosh, they work so hard. It's amazing. I am so impressed. I walk in there and go, I'm just an insignificant pebble compared to what you guys are.
Your talent.
Yeah, but I'm still insignificant. These guys are amazing.
Well, wouldn't
really
you
are.
agree? I mean, we joke, but the term talent is not necessarily a compliment in TV and video.
No, it's not. It's really not. That's why I went behind the scenes, because as a producer, that's how you make things happen. Okay. I'm not saying one job is more important than the other or one job is less important than the other. It's just that each job is important enough that they play off each other.
Yeah.
But I would just rather be behind the scenes than in front of the camera. And I don't, as you know, don't go in front of the camera very often anymore.
No, you don't.
I know. Yeah. But the Olympics are close to my heart. And so I'm always willing to do this for them.
Well, I've got to close out with one thing. And you probably will be loath to say this, but is there one thing they tell you never, ever do or say? And obviously, I mean, throwing up on camera or whatever, but is there anything else they just say, don't do that, don't ever, ever do that?
No. I will be honest with you. No, they don't. Oh, other than, cursing.
Right.
Or having
foul,
a complete...
filth, and foul of a foul of filth.
Yeah. Other than a complete meltdown.
Yeah.
No. They've never actually said, don't do this. It's more about make sure that you tell the story.
Right.
Make sure that you, and they want your opinion. You're the expert. We're there for a reason. Okay. So if they censor us, if our producers or NBC censors us, what's the point of being there? So they want you to be truthful and honest.
Very cool.
If you don't like an athlete or something that an athlete did, go ahead and say it, but don't put the athlete down. Just say, well, that guy's a jerk. You don't want to say that, Well, but there's ways you can do it. Having said that,
we actually did discuss one thing when we were talking about doing this conversation. How do you feel about that lady just turned her back and made a big production out of, and now she's trying to blame the production staff that they set her up with the anthem.
Yes.
Your thoughts as a former competitor and a broadcaster?
Two things. Number one, when I first saw it, I didn't know what was going on. I just saw this picture of her on the podium, and people and her teammates, were facing the flag with their heart, and she was just standing there with this disgusted look on her face and holding her flowers down her side. And she was obviously in the bronze medal position, so she came in third. And my first thought was, wow, that's a sore loser.
Yeah.
And then once I looked into it and I saw the story behind it, and I thought, okay, this is just wrong. Not only because you disrespected your country, which, everybody has a right to a voice. I agree. We all have voices.
Sure.
But she disrespected her teammates.
Yeah.
And she disrespected her sport. And you know what? It's not about her. She took the moment away from her teammates who didn't feel the way she did.
Yeah.
Because she didn't feel the way they did. Okay. So the least she could have done was have the courtesy and respect for her teammates. And then if she wanted to throw a hissy fit afterwards, feel free. Go ahead. But don't disrespect your teammates.
Yeah.
And that was my whole thing with her. And then I saw that she's blaming it, well, they set me up. Again, it's all about her.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't know she was going to come in third.
She's a spoiled, petulant child who was given the opportunity, because you don't just show up and do, I think it was a hammer throw. She's been fed and trained and transported through the whole process. Like I said, you don't just show up. She's gone through all this, and she's made some sacrifices, no question about that. But when you get to that certain level, the organization is basically paying the freight, and that they gave her that stage, and she, like you said, she came in third. And I really wonder on what level, how much that might have played into it. Would she have done that if she came in first? Don't know.
I doubt she ever would have come in first. And I'm going to say this, and I will say this, and I'd say this on air. Okay. One of the things that makes a champion is that that's what they want to do. They want to win. They set their bar to win the gold. No one goes into any event saying, oh, I want to come in second, or I want to come in third. No, we want to go in there and we want to win. Okay. If your focus is on something other than that, you're not going to win. So if her focus was, well, when I make it to the podium, I'm going to throw a shirt over my head, there was no way she was going to make it to the gold medal level. And it's the same. I'm reading about this other person. I can't remember what sport or the name, that they just want to get to the podium so they can burn the American flag.
Oh, geez.
Okay. The fact that that's your goal means you're probably not going to get to the podium.
Yeah.
Because in order to get to the podium, you have to want to win. That's got to be your focus, and that's it. Anything else that's going to interfere with that is going to take that performance away. And I learned that from one of the greatest shooters in the world, Lonis Wigger. He taught me that.
So, Shari, how can folks capture or catch you at the Olympics?
Well, here you go. I am FMG is stepping up to the plate with this. Serena, our new digital editor, who is just a rock star when it comes to digital and social media.
She is.
I'm going to be texting her and keeping her informed on when the shooting sports will air. So she's going to be putting that on all our social media, on Guns Magazine, on American Handgunner, on American Comp, on Facebook pages, saying, women's air rifle, which will be broadcast, by the way, because it is the first medal given away at the Olympic Games. Women's air rifle is. So she's going to have all those in front of her. She's going to know, and so she's going to be putting those up.
Excellent.
So all you have to do is keep checking our websites and keep checking to gunsmagazine.com and americanhandgunner.com, and you will get the schedule every day of what's going to air and on what network, because we're on 4 or 5 different networks.
Yeah, I say NBC, but there's all kinds. I guess there's a Peacock network now.
Yes, now there's Peacock, and we'll be on the Golf Channel, we'll be on MSNBC, we'll be on CNBC. There's like a ton of them.
I cannot see you on the Golf Channel.
Oh, well.
Hi, this is Shari LeGate, and we're here at the rifle range. You couldn't do that if you tried.
Probably not. Yeah, I'm just not that,
Yeah.
I get too emotional. I get excited.
You're high energy, and that makes good TV.
Yeah, and even something as people say boring as air rifle, because, oh my God, the finger moved, right? And it's little pellets. It's not even small bore, for God's sakes. But for me, that is incredibly exciting. I'm just like on the edge of my chair waiting. I'm like, oh my God, 10.7.
Wow.
So,
well, I will be watching that, and I'll send you some insight from the other end of the TV, which will, I'm sure, be helpful.
I'm sure it will, coming from you. After all, you are talent.
I am talent. So, well, Shari, good luck at the Olympics, and hopefully the air rifle competition and everything else is going to be very exciting, and we will see lots of you, and then you can jump up and down and scream and lose your mind when the U.S. wins something great. So
there you go, and I will.
All right.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my chat with Shari LeGate about the upcoming Olympic Games, and please tune in to the Guns Magazine social media channels to find out when Shari will be broadcasting. And with that, we hope you're enjoying the Guns Magazine podcast. Guns Magazine was first in the business, and we're bringing you the most interesting chats in the gun world. If you've got questions or comments about the show, please email me. That's editor@gunsmagazine.com. Make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast catcher, YouTube, and of course, at gunsmagazine.com. And while you're online, don't forget to check out our great sister publications, American Handgunner Magazine at AmericanHandgunner.com and AmericanCop.com. We'd also appreciate it if you'd share a favorite episode or some kind words on your own social media. And don't forget to check out the presenting sponsor of the Guns Magazine podcast, 1791 Gunleather. Visit them at 1791gunleather.com. That's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. For the entire staff at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. As this episode is just published a few days before July 4th, I'll say, God bless the United States of America. Now get out there and get shooting.